There's a reason you've walked alone for so long. There's a reason the relationships that looked perfect on paper felt hollow in practice. There's a reason you've been stripped down, rebuilt, and forced to confront parts of yourself you didn't know existed. And if you're someone who's felt this way, if you've wondered why love keeps eluding you while you watch others fall into partnerships with ease, Carl Jung would tell you something that might sound cruel at first, but is actually sacred. He'd say you're being prepared, not punished, prepared. This isn't about destiny or cosmic reward systems. This is about psychological readiness, and the universe, or more accurately, the psyche itself, has a way of making sure certain souls don't skip steps. Because what's coming for you isn't just another relationship, it's a meeting that will require you to be whole first. And that wholeness doesn't come from affirmations or vision boards. It comes from walking through fire and learning to carry your own light. Welcome to Deep Psyche Lab. I'm glad you're here. If this is your first time with us, this channel exists for one reason: to explore the depths of human psychology, particularly through the lens of Carl Jung, and to help you make sense of the patterns in your life that often feel random but are actually deeply meaningful. If that resonates with you, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what we're uncovering here. And for those of you who've been with us, thank you. Let's go deeper. Today we're talking about something Jung understood intuitively and spent his life articulating: that before certain people can meet their true counterpart, they must undergo a process of psychological transformation that most people never experience. This isn't gatekeeping. This is simply how the psyche works when it's preparing someone for a union that goes beyond romance, beyond compatibility, into the realm of psychological and spiritual partnership. And if you've been through prolonged solitude, devastating heartbreak, or a series of relationships that taught you everything except how to stay, you're likely in this process right now. The first thing Jung would want you to understand is that the psyche has its own intelligence. It's not random. It's not chaotic. It operates according to patterns that have been unfolding in human beings for millennia. And one of those patterns is this: people who are meant for deep, transformative relationships must first become individuals. Not in the superficial sense of being independent or self-sufficient, though that's part of it, but in the Jungian sense, where you've confronted your shadow, integrated your wounds, and stopped projecting your unlived life onto other people. Most relationships fail not because people are incompatible, but because they're incomplete. Two half people looking for someone else to make them whole. And the universe, or the self as Jung called it, the organizing principle of the psyche, won't allow certain souls to enter into that dynamic. Why? Because those souls are being prepared for something that requires both people to show up whole. And wholeness isn't something you can fake. It's something you earn through the very experiences you've been trying to escape. Think about the people you've loved who weren't right for you. Think about how much of that attraction was actually projection. Jung talked about this constantly. We don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with our own unconscious content reflected back at us through another person. The anima for men, the animus for women, these are the inner images of the opposite sex that we carry in our psyche. And when we meet someone who resembles that image, we experience it as fate, as destiny, as the one. But it's not the person we're seeing. It's our own soul staring back at us. And this is where the preparation begins. Because if you're someone the universe is preparing, you'll find that these projections don't work anymore. You'll meet someone who fits the image perfectly, and something inside you will say no. Or you'll be in a relationship that should work on paper, and you'll feel a restlessness you can't explain. This isn't self-sabotage, though it might look like it from the outside. This is your psyche refusing to let you settle for anything less than conscious love. And conscious love requires you to know yourself first. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, is the central task of the second half of life. But for some people, it begins earlier. It begins the moment they realize that fitting in, pleasing others, and living according to external expectations is slowly killing them. And when that realization hits, the psyche begins its work. It starts dismantling everything that isn't authentic. And that includes relationships. If you've noticed that your relationships tend to fall apart right when they should be getting serious, pay attention. If you've been left by people who said they loved you but couldn't handle your depth, your intensity, your refusal to play small, pay attention. If you've done the leaving and felt guilty about it even though you knew it was right, pay attention. These aren't failures. These are initiations. The psyche is clearing the path. It's removing everything that would keep you from becoming who you need to be. But here's where it gets harder. Because this process isn't comfortable, it's not the kind of spiritual growth you see in Instagram captions. It's lonely. It's disorienting. It's the kind of thing that makes you question whether you're broken, whether you're asking for too much, whether you'll ever find someone who can match what you're becoming. And the answer Jung would give you is this: you're not broken, you're being broken open. There's a difference. The universe, which is really just shorthand for the self, the deep organizing intelligence of your own psyche, doesn't prepare people through comfort. It prepares them through tension, through what Jung called enantiodromia, the principle that everything eventually becomes its opposite. You wanted love, so you were given solitude. You wanted connection, so you were forced into self-reliance. You wanted someone to complete you, so you were stripped down until you became complete on your own. This isn't cruelty. This is alchemy, and alchemy, in the Jungian sense, is about transformation through suffering. Not suffering for its own sake, but suffering that has meaning. Suffering that refines you. Suffering that burns away everything false until only the truth remains. And the truth is this: you can't meet your person until you've met yourself. Not the self you present to the world, not the self you think you should be, but the self that exists beneath all of that. The shadow, the wound, the rage, the longing, the parts of you that you've spent your whole life trying to hide or fix or pretend don't exist. Jung said that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And this is what the universe does to rare souls. It forces them into their own darkness. It takes away the distractions, the easy escapes, the relationships that would have allowed them to avoid themselves. And it says, look at what you've been running from. Look at the wound you've been trying to have someone else heal. Look at the person you've been waiting for someone else to give you permission to become. This is why solitude is part of the process, not loneliness, though it often feels like it, but solitude, time alone that isn't about waiting for someone to rescue you, but about learning to be your own companion. Jung spent years in what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period of intense isolation where he explored his own psyche through active imagination, dreams, and what would eventually become the Red Book. He wasn't running from relationship. He was preparing for it by becoming a whole person first. And this is what's happening to you if you're in this process. You're not being kept from love. You're being prepared for a kind of love that most people never experience because they never do this work. You're being prepared for a relationship where you don't lose yourself, where you don't need the other person to validate your existence, where you can love without possession and be loved without being consumed. But that kind of love requires two people who've each done the work of becoming whole. The shadow is the part of this that most people want to skip. It's the part of you that you've disowned, the traits you've deemed unacceptable, the anger, the selfishness, the desire, the parts of you that don't fit the image you want to present. Jung said that everyone carries a shadow, and the less it's embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. And when you're being prepared for the right person, the universe will make sure you meet your shadow, not once, but over and over until you stop running from it. This often shows up as patterns. The same type of person keeps appearing in your life, triggering the same wounds, exposing the same unhealed parts of you, and you think you're cursed, or that you're choosing wrong, or that there's something fundamentally broken in you. But Jung would say this is the psyche's way of teaching you. These people aren't here to be your forever. They're here to show you what you haven't integrated yet. They're mirrors, and what you're seeing in them is your own shadow. And the work is to stop projecting it, to stop blaming them for what they're reflecting, to look at what's being triggered in you and ask, what is this showing me about myself? What part of me haven't I accepted yet? What wound am I trying to get someone else to heal instead of healing it myself? This is the work the universe demands before it sends you the right person, because the right person isn't going to heal you. They're going to meet you as an equal, and that requires you to have already done your own healing. Jung also talked about synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal the hidden order beneath apparent chaos. And when you're in this preparation phase, you'll start noticing them. The book that appears exactly when you need it. The conversation that answers a question you've been holding. The person who enters your life briefly but changes something fundamental in how you see yourself. These aren't random. They're signposts. They're the psyche communicating with you, showing you that you're on the right path even when it doesn't feel like it. But here's what you need to understand about synchronicity. It doesn't show up to make your life easier. It shows up to make your life more meaningful, and meaning often requires struggle. It requires you to stay in the tension, to not collapse into easy answers, to trust that there's a pattern unfolding even when you can't see it yet. This is what the universe is teaching you. Patience, trust, the ability to hold paradox, the understanding that you can be lonely and whole at the same time, that you can long for partnership and still be complete on your own. The people who skip this process, who jump from relationship to relationship, who can't tolerate being alone, they're avoiding the very work that would make real love possible. They're looking for someone to fill the void inside them, and they'll spend their whole lives disappointed, because no one can do that. Only you can do that. Only you can meet the parts of yourself you've been exiling and bring them home. Only you can learn to hold your own pain without needing someone else to fix it. Only you can become the person you've been waiting for. And this is the paradox Jung understood better than almost anyone. You have to become whole before you can truly merge with another person. The alchemical marriage, the union of opposites that he talked about so often, isn't about two incomplete people finding completion in each other. It's about two whole people creating something greater than themselves. But you can't skip to that ending. You have to earn it. The universe is also testing your discernment. After years of healing, of shadow work, of learning to be alone, you'll start to meet people who seem right. People who are kind, available, interested. And the old you would have jumped in, but the new you, the one who's been prepared, will feel something different. You'll feel the subtle misalignment. You'll notice the places where your values don't quite match, where their level of consciousness doesn't meet yours, where the relationship would require you to diminish yourself to make it work. And this is where a lot of people panic. They think they're being too picky, too demanding, too idealistic. They think they should settle, should give it a chance, should be grateful that anyone is interested. But Jung would say this is exactly the test. Because the right person won't require you to shrink. They won't require you to perform. They won't require you to betray yourself. And knowing that, having the strength to walk away from good enough in service of what's truly right, that's a level of self-respect that only comes from having done this work. The preparation also involves grief. Grieving the relationships that didn't work out. Grieving the time you think you've wasted. Grieving the version of yourself who believed love was supposed to be easy. Jung understood that growth requires death. Not physical death, but the death of old identities, old beliefs, old ways of being. And death is painful even when it's necessary, especially when it's necessary. So if you've been grieving, if you've been mourning not just the people you've lost, but the innocence you've lost, the naivety, the hope that someone would just show up and make everything make sense, that's part of the process. You're not moving backward. You're integrating. You're letting go of the fantasy so you can make space for something real. And real love, conscious love, isn't a fantasy. It's a choice. It's work. It's showing up as a whole person and choosing to build something with another whole person. The universe is also teaching you about your own worth. Not in the abstract sense, not in the way self-help books talk about it, but in the lived, embodied sense. Worth that comes from knowing who you are. Worth that comes from having met your shadow and not being afraid of it anymore. Worth that comes from being able to sit with yourself and feel at peace. This is the worth that makes you unavailable for mediocre love. This is the worth that makes you say no to relationships that would have been good enough 5 years ago, but aren't good enough now. And here's what's interesting. The moment you truly embody that worth, the moment you stop looking for someone to validate it, that's often when the right person appears. Not because the universe rewards you for being patient, but because you've finally become someone who can recognize and receive the kind of love you're meant for. You're no longer projecting. You're no longer desperate. You're no longer willing to abandon yourself for connection. And that changes everything. Jung called this the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to hold opposing tensions until a new way of being emerges. You're learning to hold the tension between wanting love and being whole without it, between being open to partnership and being complete on your own, between hoping for the future and being present in the now. And from that tension, something new is born, a version of you who can love without losing yourself, who can commit without being consumed, who can be vulnerable without being dependent. This is what the universe does to rare souls. It doesn't make the path easy. It makes you capable of walking it. It doesn't send you love when you're desperate for it. It prepares you to receive it when you're ready. And ready doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean healed of every wound. It means conscious. It means awake. It means aware of your patterns and willing to choose differently. It means able to see another person clearly instead of through the lens of your own projection. The right person, when they come, won't feel like a rescue. They'll feel like a recognition. You'll see in them the same work you've done. You'll see someone who's walked their own path, faced their own shadow, become whole on their own. And the relationship won't be about completing each other. It'll be about witnessing each other, supporting each other's continued growth, creating a space where both of you can keep becoming more of who you truly are. But that relationship can't happen until you've done this work, until you've learned to stop running from yourself, until you've integrated your shadow, until you've grieved your losses, until you've learned to be alone without being lonely, until you've developed discernment, until you've embodied your worth. This is the preparation. And if you're in it right now, if you're feeling the weight of it, if you're wondering when it will end, know this: it's working. You're being refined. You're being prepared. And what's coming for you is worth every moment of the wait. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But that transformation can only be generative, can only be healing, can only be real if both people have already done the work of knowing themselves. Otherwise, it's just two unconscious people creating more unconsciousness together. And the universe won't let that happen to you. Not anymore. You've been marked for something deeper. So trust the process. Trust the solitude. Trust the lessons hidden in every heartbreak. Trust that nothing is being wasted. Every person who wasn't right for you taught you something about who you are and what you need. Every moment alone has been an opportunity to befriend yourself. Every dark night of the soul has been preparing you for a dawn you can't even imagine yet. And when the right person comes, you'll understand why it couldn't have happened any sooner. You'll understand that you weren't ready, and now you are. This is not a story about waiting passively for the universe to deliver someone to you. This is a story about becoming the kind of person who can participate in the kind of love most people only dream about. And that requires work. It requires courage. It requires a willingness to face yourself honestly. It requires solitude, shadow work, grief, and integration. But it also leads to something most people never find: a relationship that doesn't diminish you, that doesn't require you to perform, that sees you clearly and loves you anyway, not because they need you, but because they choose you, and you choose them, as equals, as whole people, as partners in the truest sense of the word. Before we close, I want to be clear about something. This channel is educational and not a substitute for therapy. What we explore here is meant to deepen your understanding of yourself and the patterns in your life. But if you're struggling, please reach out to a qualified professional. Psychology is a tool for insight, not a replacement for genuine support. Now, if this resonated with you, if you felt like you've been in preparation for something you couldn't name until now, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps this content reach more people who need to hear it. And in the comments, I want to hear from you. Write the words, "I am whole," not because I'm asking you to manifest anything, but because I want you to feel what it's like to declare that truth, even if you're still in the process of becoming it. And if you're new here, subscribe to Deep Psyche Lab. This is where we go beneath the surface, where we explore Jung, depth psychology, and the patterns that make us human. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what we're uncovering next. For everyone who's been with us, thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for choosing consciousness over comfort. Remember, the preparation isn't punishment. It's sacred, and you're exactly where you need to be. Until next time.